Next, we are excited to present our conversation with Hana Khouri, CEO, President, and Director of Drive Shack, moderated by Christine Perez, editor of DCEO. Please welcome Hana Khouri and Christine Perez.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome, Hana.
Thank you.
I'm excited
Good to be
for our
here.
conversation.
Thanks, me too.
We, earlier this year, did a big profile on Hana, and she was kind of under the radar a little bit, but no more. And we're super excited to have her here this morning to share her insights and her journey. She has such a fascinating story to tell. So we're gonna get right into it, and let's start, Hana, by just giving everyone, kind of set the stage by giving everyone a little quick summary of your career journey.
Yeah, so that's it was not a direct path for sure. But most recently, I guess I was at Topgolf. I helped Topgolf set the stage for their large-scale development, meaning on the domestic side and then later internationally. When I joined Topgolf, I'm sure you all have heard of Topgolf. It definitely was not the company that it is today or even when I left. We were small. Not really many people knew about us. I remember I'd wear my Topgolf gear on an airplane and people would strike up a conversation next to me. They would say, like, what is Topgolf? And I would have to explain it. And then towards the end of my career there, towards the end of my time there, I would intentionally not put any Topgolf merch on because the person next to me on the plane would not stop talking to me about it. So I'm trying to get work done, and I'm just like, come on. So it was interesting for me to transition over to the international side of the business because I was able to really help them rebuild that footprint overseas. So we kind of started back from what we were previously, which was no one really knew about us in Dubai and Mexico City and Asia and Australia, which was our first one. And we really got to build the brand again, just in a different way. So, fast forward to my career with Drive Shack, I met Wes Edens, who is the chairman of our board, our largest shareholder. And Wes said to me, look, I will come work for me and I will teach you about things that you've never really learned. And I said, well, I don't really understand that because Drive Shack is really what we've already done at Topgolf. And he said, come be my chief of staff and I will really help teach you about the public markets and everything that you really haven't been exposed to at Topgolf. Took a leap, wasn't much of a leap because I'm in good hands with Wes, but he really taught me a lot about things I never would have been exposed to previously. So I'm forever grateful for that opportunity. When Drive Shack came around, there was some instability in the corporation at the time right around the time my non-compete was expiring with Topgolf. And he asked me to go over and help kind of set the ship straight or right again. And so I took him up on that and I did that. And shortly thereafter, we came up with Puttery. And that's our kind of growth path at this point.
Excellent. So first let's tell everybody what Puttery is, for those who don't know.
Yeah, so if you haven't been, our first location is actually in the Colony in Grandscape. Puttery has really evolved and morphed into what we have today, and it's still evolving slightly from lessons learned from each of the locations that we're opening. But Puttery was born off of literally like a blank sheet of paper. We did not invent mini golf, obviously, but we really wanted to make it cool again and to really bring it back into modern times. I think everyone has a sense of nostalgia when they think about mini golf, and they probably don't also think about Puttery when they think of mini golf. Hopefully they start to do that now that we've built. But we really paid attention to the vibe. Puttery is meant to be a really immersive experience featuring mini golf, but brought into the modern times. So we paid a lot of attention to the food and beverage menu because we don't want people to just come to Puttery to play golf. We're not of the mindset that that's all people want to come to Puttery to do, and we've seen that. So we wanted to really create a really great environment, first and foremost. We wanted to really focus on the food and beverage, which is something a lot of hospitality companies don't necessarily put first. And then we wanted to make sure that the game was really great. So we installed scorecards that are automated, and essentially what we wanted was for people to be able to not have to focus on carrying around a miniature pencil and a scorecard. We wanted them to focus on carrying around a drink and carrying their golf club, and really socializing with others. So that scorecard actually follows you from hole to hole. So you input your score on each hole, or one of your buddies does, and then it follows you throughout the experience. That definitely morphed. We originally were doing auto scoring, and we can talk about that in a little bit. I think that's one of your questions on how that morphed. It definitely was not the thing that we thought it was going to be on day one. That said, it ended up being something really great that we're really proud of.
And the settings are super imaginative. So some of the ones that you've come up with so far, like it's kind of like Alice in Wonderland maybe, or
yeah, so,
how would you describe them?
Yeah, the golf courses, each course is 9 holes and they're themed. So there are thematic elements throughout. We have done several of them, and each of our locations has between 2 and 4 courses, depending on the footprint of the space. So right now we have Illusion, which is the Alice in Wonderland. If any of you all are on social media and have ever seen Puttery on Instagram, it's probably, I guarantee you've seen the black and white, swirly, kind of 3-dimensional picture. Folks love that one. We have the library, the mountain lodge, the conservatory, which is not here, and then a couple other surprises for some of our locations next year for New York and Miami and some of the others. So they're all very unique, and then our menus are specialized for those courses, our drink menus.
Oh, okay, great. So you came in and you saw what the business model was, and you thought, let's change this up a little. Can you talk about how you convinced Wes and others that focusing on Puttery more was the way to go?
Yeah, so I mean, first and foremost, I have to give it to Wes. He's very open-minded about things if they're a good investment, right? So I think like many of us, like anyone in the room, he wants to make sure that he can make money on it and that it would be a profitable endeavor. And in the hospitality and entertainment space, it's a little bit finicky because so much of it has already been done, or it's fleeting. You always think of, okay, what could they possibly do next? I mean, you have axe throwing, of all things. Giving people alcohol and axes is something I never thought I would see, but here we are. Something we will never do, by the way, but it's fun. I think that what we said was, look, a Drive Shack property similar to a Topgolf takes 12 to 15 acres of land, and then on top of that, it's a ground-up build, so it takes 18 to 24 months to build, and it's very costly. So as an investor, you're looking at, let's call it a $35 million investment to not have a return on that investment for 24 months. And that's a bit of a tall hill to climb. Topgolf has done it very successfully, but they've also really gotten brand awareness in the marketplace. They've also really canvassed the US. So while they were spending their time shrinking their footprint, which was very smart because again, 12 to 15 acres is not easy to find when you overlay that with your demographic requirements. When they were spending that time, we were spending our time looking at what else could we do. And there were a few requirements. One, it needed to be in the entertainment space. We were pretty passionate about entertainment. We have a great team that's very seasoned in entertainment and hospitality. But 2, we wanted it to be inside. We wanted to reduce the time it took to build, and we wanted to open our opportunity for being able to get those real estate pieces or land. At the time, we thought it could be land, or at this point, retail spaces. We wanted that to be copious enough for us to be able to have our choice, right? So we said, okay, we're going to go into retail. In my travels, I noticed there were a lot of things happening in London and Dubai that happened there first in the entertainment and hospitality space, and then later traveled to the US. Mini golf was one of those things. So everyone actually thought I was crazy when I said, like, let's do mini golf. And I kind of questioned myself also, honestly. But we did a lot of research in the UK before COVID happened. And we learned more about what we didn't like in those concepts than what we did like, which was more helpful to us, I believe, because then you're not in danger of kind of just repeating what has already been done. So you know, it was really a process that morphed, and we did a lot of time working on financial analysis and what we thought each market could do. We brought in some third-party experts that could really help make sure our pro formas were accurate. And then, you know, Wes got bought into it, and he said, let's try this. If it really works, which it has, then we're looking at margins that are you know, insanely positive, and things that we might not be able to, or we would not be able to attain anytime soon with a traditional drive shack.
Insanely positive.
Insanely
That's
positive.
intriguing.
It is. I mean, look, we did not, when we did our pro formas, we didn't know. We said, okay, we could have development yields of between 25 and 40%. And when we're looking at the numbers now, we have 2 that have just lapsed a year in the Colony, and well, Charlotte's almost lapsing a year. And their EBITDA margins, or I'm sorry, their development yields and their EBITDA margins are really, really positive. And that's showing us proof of concept. It's also showing us that our pro formas were correct. So it's exciting for us.
Outstanding. And then you got a little $10 million investment from golf superstar Rory McIlroy. And so how did that come about, and what has the impact been?
Rory has been great. So Rory actually started helping us long before we ever made the announcement. He started helping us during COVID and prior to COVID, when we were going out and doing all of this research. It was really helpful to have Rory because, ironically, I'm not a golfer. I know being at Topgolf and then at Drive Shack, I'm absolutely not a golfer. And we were really, really focused again on the food and beverage component. And Rory brought a skill set that we didn't necessarily have and that we weren't thinking about, which is, you know, how are the courses laid out? And there's a whole kind of physics exercise that you have to do with each of these courses. And the turf, the speed of the turf became important. And no one that goes into a puttery location, by the way, unless you're Rory or a really avid golfer, is going to say like, oh man, that turf speed was too slow. That's not going to happen, but it subconsciously actually affects your game and the gameplay. So if turf is really fast, it's actually pretty hard for someone like me to go in and feel like I'm doing a good job or enjoying the game, because, you know, as competitive as it is, you want to feel like it's not just the game isn't beating you every single hole. So Rory was really, really helpful with that. He came to us from one of the members of our board, or now a member of our board, who is the Global VP of Touring for TaylorMade. And Keith, that's Keith. Keith was helping me a lot during COVID, and our head of procurement during COVID, helping us source golf balls from China, et cetera. It was very, very difficult during that time, and our business did not stop. We have a whole traditional golf portion of our business under American Golf, which is just under 60 courses over 9 states, and golf boomed over COVID. So where we were, you know, most of the world and supply chain was shutting down, we were in need of constantly replenishing things like golf balls and clubs, getting new carts, et cetera. So Keith was very, very instrumental in helping us with that. He had brought Rory to the picture, you know, long before that. And I remember showing Rory our first set of drawings for the courses, and they're nothing like what we have today, by the way. Like, it couldn't be further from what we actually ended up creating. And he loved them. But then he also loved what we ended up with. So it was quite the journey. He has invested, or committed to investing $10 million on our first 10 venues. And he has the opportunity to, after 1 year of operations, to re-up his investment in those businesses. And then we're definitely looking at, after the 10, what his involvement looks like. Obviously, it has not been made public yet, but we're really excited about that partnership.
Sounds like a fantastic alignment. So I wanted to switch gears a little bit and talk to you about your leadership style. Also, I think it's super intriguing that you like to push yourself. Moving from Topgolf to working with Wes and having the opportunity, he knew how to get you by telling you about the opportunity to learn new things. Sounds like you tapped into an interest of yours. And he describes you as hands-on, detail-oriented, and he says that you surround yourself with capable people. So is that accurate? And how would you describe your leadership style? What's worked for you?
Definitely accurate to a point. I am very hands-on, specifically with the puttery because that was sort of my baby during COVID. And even now, it's just incredible to see it all come to life. I'm hands-on in the fact that I don't like asking my team to do something that I wouldn't do myself. That's difficult because as a CEO and as a creator of this concept, there's no way you can ever know how to do everything, right? You have to, and I have found that my success has really been dependent on making sure that I'm not the smartest person in the room, making sure that I'm surrounding myself with people who know more than I do and who know more about different things than I do, have different views. And everyone in this room has heard that time and time again. You know, it's important to surround yourself with people who have different views. And that really came to life for me in this, and it really became very, very important for me. My leadership style, I'm tough. You know, I am tough, and I hold people accountable, but I also clearly communicate, and I'm very transparent. So I like to set out the vision and then to get the team to really come together and to work towards that vision or towards that goal. And by the way, that can change, and it has changed specifically with puttery, because as you learn things, you have to be agile and you have to be willing to adjust your path. So I really trust my team. I really listen to them. Listening is really important because if you surround yourself with capable people and then don't listen to them, it's all for nothing. And it's hard to do that sometimes. It's hard to have a thought in your mind and say, okay, this is what we're going to do. And then to have someone who's more capable than you in a certain area come back to you and say, look, that might not exactly work, and here's why. But instead, we've just taken it as an opportunity to really say, okay, then let's recreate this together and figure out what will work so that we're not constantly hitting walls.
What are some of the lessons you've learned from listening?
I have definitely been humbled a lot through listening. There are things I will tell you that I'm just convinced that I know, and things that I have done before, specifically, you know, in the operations space, and I am humbled every day by that. I think that I have really, really learned that management after COVID, it's different. It has to be different. Whether we like it or not, it is different. We were a company that we were fully in person, fully in the office every day because we were building this brand. And as the world has changed, that thought process has changed, right? Do we go hybrid? Do we do all in person? So I've really learned that, you know, when people are speaking about something that they're equally passionate about, it's very important to listen because it might seem like a small detail. There were so many small details that became really big things. And I don't think anything, especially when you're creating something, is too small to be able to kind of listen to and take a pause and say, okay, that said, you know, perfection is the enemy of progress. You have to just keep on going, and you have to just have this tenacity and will to continue, even when you're told that there's a better way to do it and you have to start all over again or you have to change course. It's very important.
Yeah, it's better than the alternatives of deciding too late and having the damage be
We've
done.
had some of those too. We've had it all.
Can you talk a little bit about the decision to consolidate all of the operations to DFW? What kind of, you know, what factored into that decision and how it's been going?
Yeah, so when I joined the business, we were in New York, and we had an office in Chelsea. We also had an office in LA for our American Golf, and then we had a small office in Dallas and Irving for our IT team. And, you know, this is before puttery, and still with American Golf, we are not a big enough company to have 3 offices across the United States. It didn't really make a lot of sense to me, so I started thinking about ways we could consolidate that to save cost, but also to be smarter about how we were managing our people At the time, again, before COVID, it was really hard to manage people from New York that were in LA. The time change alone just made it very challenging. We already had an office in Dallas. I had moved from Dallas to New York. And so I was really excited about getting back to Texas. So when we started hiring, I started only posting jobs for Dallas talent because I wanted to create a base of people. It is very true. That is what I did. There's so much talent in DFW, and so much has moved to DFW since COVID, and this was even before that, right? So I just said, okay, let's just start posting the jobs there. And eventually, our little Irving office kind of outgrew itself. And then COVID started to hit. So we did an analysis on the cost savings that would yield a move to Dallas. And I took it to Wes and I said, look, this really makes sense. Just to give you guys an idea, in Chelsea, our office was, 12,500 square feet, somewhere around there. And we were paying like over $1 million a year in rent. So. Wow. It was absolutely crazy. Now our office I'm sure you guys have driven by it. I put one of our IT guys in charge of the sign, so I did not give him specifications, and he just did the biggest sign possible that would fit on the building. So we can't really be missed, but it is 20,000 square feet. It houses everyone. So we waited for our lease to run out in LA, and really the decision for Wes was a no-brainer. He actually just opened an office for NFE in Houston. There's unmatched talent in DFW, and it is a challenging time to hire. It is a challenging labor market right now, but it is so much better here than it is anywhere else in the country, and we have seen that. So I have seen that. So I have no plans of leaving Dallas, and I love it here. I love living here. So
fantastic. Let's talk a little bit about tenacity. When you were young, did you dream of having the position that you have now?
Yeah, I mean, I guess not this exact position. It was hard for me to ever imagine me doing anything like this. I grew up in a family that I wouldn't say that we were exactly poor, but definitely living paycheck to paycheck, renting homes, and there's nothing wrong with doing any of that. But when I grew up, my parents' idea of really setting us up for success and telling me what I needed to do in order to be successful was like, make sure you open a 401k and make sure you're really contributing to that. And there's nothing wrong with that, but there's so much more that young people should be doing. And I remember thinking to myself when I was in my 20s, like, man, if I could just make $100,000 a year, I would be set. And that was my goalpost. And I had no one in my life to set the goalpost higher except for myself. And I went for it, and I just kept on going for it. And I learned a lot of lessons along the way. You know, sometimes I went a little too hard, and I needed to scale back a bit and really learn to listen to people and really learn to be the leader that I am today and someone that I could be proud of. But it took a lot of grit, and it took a lot of not giving up. And I know everyone in this room probably has felt the same thing. You know, when you're an entrepreneur and you're starting something, it's tough. And, you know, some people quit because they expect the answers to just be, you know, I got funding and now it's going to be easy. That's like the first step of a million. And when things don't go your way, you have to be able to bounce back, not only in business, but in life. And I think that has really been that experience growing up for me has been one thing that has made me really successful.
That's awesome. So I want to wrap things up by asking you, what has you most excited about the future?
A lot, actually. I'm really excited about DFW specifically, and having launched Puttery in DFW. It's one of our most successful venues. We've really seen people coming out of COVID really excited to socialize, to compete. You know, people spent 2 years, 2 birthdays, 2 anniversaries, you know, major life moments, births and deaths, and all of these things, you know, stuck in their bubble or inside of their homes. And it's really, really exciting to see people coming out again and really just having FaceTime with each other. And whether that's at Puttery or another entertainment concept, there are a lot of them opening right now. That's only better for all of us, and it's better for our brand as well. So I am most excited about just the way society is actually coming out into the world again, and also about the way technology is really influencing what we're doing in entertainment. There is such a profound opportunity in front of us for technology to really infiltrate the entertainment space. And at Puttery, we haven't even scratched the surface. But that is what I'm most interested in doing and most excited about. You hear about Meta and all of this other stuff. I think that we're going to see entertainment change.
Well, it's really fascinating that you are right there at the intersection of social trends and tech opportunities. So
Right.
that's awesome.
It's exciting. Yeah.
That is great. Look at that, 0-0. We did great.
Did it.
Thank you to Hana for sharing your insights and your journey with us. We are now going to break for a little networking and return in 30 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you.